I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift for each of them, it could add up. But this year, while I was making my way through Walmart, I realized I don't have to spend a lot to get the gifts they'll love.
An OPI mini mani set. I'm gonna do so much nail art.
Oh, yeah! A Lego set. My own Awala water bottle.
Ooh, and that's just half of them.
Shop great gifts they're sure to love for $25 and under at Walmart.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. Last episode, we got to hear from Alan Simmons and learned about his journey and the awesome path his life is on now. We look forward to hearing about his next novels in the future and all the good things he does for others. In this episode, we meet a dynamic speaker, an accomplished leader, an expert in managing people to peak performance during change and adversity. He has over 20 years of experience speaking for Fortune 500 clients in a broad swath of industries, including healthcare, financial, insurance, retail, and the military, at hundreds of conferences, seminars, and retreats. His name is John Davis, and without further ado, let's get him up on here.
Have my grown-up job and buy one. So that's where
how long were you in the Army?
22 years.
Wow, thank you very, very much. Have you been over to the sand?
4 times.
Oh, where'd you go?
Iraq. Well, I was in Kuwait when 9/11 occurred. So I went from a regular deployment to a combat deployment on 9/11. So I stayed there and helped to Afghanistan. Then I went to Iraq and then Afghanistan 2 times at the end of my career.
Okay, so did you see any good USO shows when you were over there?
Where I was, usually they didn't come to us. We had the WWE people came to us a couple times. I was in Ramadi, Iraq, and then I was in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and Kunar, Afghanistan.
Okay,
so
I've been in Ramadi and Kandahar.
Okay,
never made it to Kunar. I went all the way out to Korean Village in Iraq. Oh. Yeah, I did all of the Marine bases in the Anbar province doing USO shows. I did a show called Hack and Slash from 2001 to 2006. I would have been in Iraq in 2003, 2003, 4, 5, and 6. We would have been in Iraq.
Oh wow! Yeah, I was there 3, 4.
Because I was curious whether you'd seen a comedy sword fighting show with beds of nails and crazy guys.
I did not see it, but I'm sure you were in our area. I was in Ramadi in 2003, 2004.
Oh yeah, I have actually video of me sword fighting in the palace.
Okay,
the blown up palace.
Diamond that time, yeah. Camp Blue Diamond. Yeah.
Yep, totally been there. Actually, my biggest memory of Blue Diamond. This is kind of funny. I got up to go. I was in one of the sleeping cans, and I went over to go to the Cadillac, and I walked into the Cadillac, and I was cleaning up, and I looked up, and there was an RPG stuck in the wall above me.
Welcome.
I walked outside and said, "Is that a bad thing?" And the guy said, "Well, we just haven't gotten to it yet."
And that's the bad thing.
That was so amazing. That was the show where at the end of the show, they put us in the motor pool. We did our show in the motor pool, and at the end of the show, a guy comes up to me and says, this morning I was in a firefight. This afternoon for 2.5 hours, I forgot all about that. Thank you so much for coming. That was like the biggest compliment we could have gotten.
To have that escape, I guess. When we're over there, something to help us escape from our reality that's going on.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day, except for every day. Everybody wants to kill you every day, right?
Yes, everyone hates you every day.
Every day, right? But when I say thank you for your service, I mean it because I've seen it firsthand.
I appreciate it. No problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to just tell us a little bit about how you got started in motivational speaking or just public speaking, basically for 20 years now, I guess, right? And over 20 years, and you're also a stunt coordinator, a fight director, a comedian, a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything, kind of like most of the people that were part of the Misfits. They're a hodgepodge of everything. So if you just want to tell a little bit about you, that'll get us going and see how we go from here.
Sure. Well, when I was a young man, I wanted to be Robin Hood. Actually, I was a kid. I was out in the woods with a stick in my hand and a sword and swinging from vines and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then that kind of manifested in the desire to become a stuntman and a fight director and do sword fights for stage. And I ended up getting drugged to a Renaissance festival and meeting two of the top fight directors in the country who gave me all their training for free because they thought I had talent. And got real into that, and was working my way to becoming a fight director and a fight choreographer, a stuntman. And I was also going for my black belt in Taekwondo at the time. And a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, can you help me unload my van?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." So I drove out to his house and I started to unload these boxes of clay he had in his van, which were like 80-pound boxes of clay. He was a professional potter. And I picked up that first box of clay, and when I turned to set that box out of the van, my spine cracked in two. And I collapsed and was paralyzed. So they took me to the hospital. The doctor said, "Mr. Davis, you have a condition known as spina bifida occulta," to which I promptly said, "Gesundheit." I had no idea what he was talking about. Three of my vertebrae never formed properly at birth, and what happened with the extra 80 pounds and the twisting action, I broke my spine in half. He said, "You'll probably never walk again, and even if you do walk again, you'll never have a physical career." And so basically at 22 years old, I was told all my dreams were done. And, I went to some pretty dark places. Then a buddy of mine comes in and he gave me a gift. And it's funny when you look back at it now, it kind of looks like the cruelest joke somebody could play. But I was lying in a hospital bed, just being told I'd never do martial arts again or any sort of physical, fighting styles. And he gave me a book called The Tao Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. And so he gave the martial artist who was just told he'd never do martial arts the only book ever written by the greatest martial artist that ever lived. I was like, well, thanks. But as I read that book, I was fascinated because that book is more about his philosophy of martial arts than actually learning, technique or katas. So I tapped into a couple things in there. I tapped into leveraging your present moment and staying very present. And I tapped into mental flexibility. And what I did was I decided in that moment that this doctor was giving me his belief, but I was going to take my own belief and live my own moment. And I started flexing my upper back muscles. And I slowly, over the course of the next several weeks, would just slowly flex my back muscles all the way down my back as far as I could go, until one day I was able to flex my hips. And the doctors were blown away. They couldn't believe it. And then by the time a month had gone by, I was able to sit up on the side of that bed. And by the time of 6 months, I was walking around. At a year, I was back to where I would say I was a normal human being again, but I was not as big and buff and, rock hard masculine as I was before. And what happened was at a year and 6 months, I had brought myself back far enough that I gave myself a gift. I climbed up on top of a 3-story tower and I jumped off into a fall pad. I then went on to do over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows all over the world, including the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. And then that comedy show had taken me all over the world, and I'd met stars. I'd done all kinds of things. I've worked in movies. I'd done a lot of things. And I started to realize that I was enjoying the time off of the stage more than on the stage. And what I was doing off the stage was I was helping people achieve their goals and break out of their limiting beliefs. And I suddenly realized that I had come up with this process I call the 5 F's, hacking the fight or flight response and creating real outcome. And that 5 F's took me to whole new levels. Now I was like, okay, how do I bring that to an audience? And more so, how do I bring that to an audience, but still do all the cool stuff that I like to do, like whips and nunchucks? And so I created the Corporate Action Hero. And now I go into corporations and I awaken their inner action hero. I do whips and nunchucks on the stage. And one of my main corporate action hero speeches always culminates with me choosing the most timid person I can find in my audience, dragging them to the stage, and in under 5 minutes, using the techniques, I take them from never having cracked a whip to cracking a whip and taking targets out of my hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
That's how I ended up becoming the corporate action hero and doing motivational speaking.
Awesome. I mean, that's a journey right there. And you got kicked in your chest, broke your back, and you bounced back showing resilience. And do you think that resilience came from your upbringing or just your hard-headedness made you push through it?
I think that resilience came from me choosing to take my own power. The resilience is one thing. Yes, I had resilience because I was able to go through it, but resilience is a choice. And for me, I couldn't choose to do what that doctor was saying. I couldn't choose to do what all my well-meaning friends were saying. I had to choose and create my own experience. And now my path before this, I didn't have a lot of self strength. I was a very low self-esteem because I came from a father who had 7 kids, and I was the one he didn't like, and he was an emotional abuser, and he actually had really knocked me down to the point where I couldn't speak in public before. And so when this thing happened, I'd started getting into acting, so it gave me a chance to break free of that. And by getting into acting, I was able to separate my original, hurt child and become a character. And once I became that character, I was able to embody the character. And then I was able to come back to myself and say, okay, that's a different character that I was as a child. And so it's a different animal. It's when I look at resilience and all those things, it literally, like I say, it comes down to choice. And for me, it's about your present moment. What are you creating in your present moment? Because all of your limiting beliefs, all of your self-doubt comes from past experience in your subconscious mind. And if the only way you change your subconscious mind is to stack present moments successfully and positively. And because all the subconscious mind really is a collection of present moment memories.
Right. And a lot of people do get hung up on what happened before. So
right.
If I ran this lap and I fell down, I'll never be able to run a lap again because I fell down on turn 3. I fell down. Or if you're a race car, right? I crashed into a wall here. I'll never pass this race. And you're right. People it's a mental block. It blacks you out basically, and you defeat yourself basically.
Right. Exactly. And you think about this. Your subconscious mind has 2 real jobs, and the first job is to store those memories and give you that subconscious belief. The other job that your subconscious mind has is to help you achieve whatever you focus on. And so say for instance, you decide, okay, so you told me you have a Jeep, right? So when you decided to buy that Jeep, before you went to the store to buy it, did you start seeing Jeeps everywhere?
Yes, everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, right? And the reason that happened is because you consciously chose Jeep, and next thing you know, your subconscious mind was saying, "There's a Jeep, there's a Jeep, there's a Jeep, there's a Jeep." This is why people are negative or people are victims, because they're saying, "I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm stuck, and they're focused on that. If they can change their conscious focus, there's only one moment that we can do anything. Thought, word, and deed only is active in the present moment. As I said, the past is just present moment memories. The future is just a place where you set goals for your next present moment. But the people who sit here and in the focus of I want to change are just saying that they don't have it here and now in the present moment. And if you want to change your present moment and you want that giant goal that you set up there, you have to realize one thing. You don't have to get to that goal. That goal is coming to you depending on what you do with your present moment. And so if you take your present moment and you actively make it positive and in alignment with the goal, that goal is moving to you. And when you experience it, it'll be in your present moment. So for me, when that doctor said I couldn't become a stuntman or a fight director and might not possibly ever walk again, I couldn't take that as my belief. So instead, what I did was I took this present moment and said, I'm going to be a stuntman. And I started flexing my back muscles, and I started taking the present moment actions towards that outcome. And by the time I got to that 1.5 year point, I jumped off that tower. I had learned a whole new way of manifesting my life. And, now I've been to 30 countries. I climbed Mount Sinai. I climbed Machu Picchu. I've been in the Blue Lagoons of Iceland. I've been all over the world doing amazing things. And it's all because of the fact that I knew I could. And I chose to do them.
You chose the correct path, and that's what the hang up, just like we're both saying. I think the hang up everyone does is they see the easy way to turn is not to go for the challenge. So if I'm running down the street and I see the two paths, this one looks a lot easier. There's no red lights. I'm going there, and it's easy. That's a lot most people will do. They won't take that hard one where you have to actually put in the effort and think things through to get out of there. Then that's what stops a lot of people, because they take that easy right, and then all of a sudden there's a wall and they don't know what to do.
And here's another way to look at this. Instead of thinking of it as a challenge, think of it as I can easily conquer anything. I mean, that's a very different way of thinking about things. It's interesting. Buddha says, what you think you become, you create your world. Krishna said, you are the culmination of your thought. Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. But Moses said God's name was I am. So whatever you're putting after I am is what you're creating and what you're asking for. And so I am wanting, I am needing, I am hoping, I am trying. That I am basically asking for wanting, needing, hoping, or trying. You want to make sure that you're asking for creating, enjoying. I am enjoying. I am having a great time. I love, conquering big obstacles. And this is just fun. The way you think about your experience and what you're doing determines your life experience.
Right. Like in 2012, on my last deployment, I was wounded 2 days into country in Kunar. I had a mortar hit behind me and went through my left leg, out my knee. And prior to it, I had become a pretty good runner, a marathoner. And the first thing the doctor told me was, I'll never run again. I can't run. And so I just took that as, all right, accepted, challenge accepted. And every morning I'd wake up before everyone else and hit the little dirty treadmill and do as much as I could before my up, and then hide back into bed like I didn't do anything. Until finally, a year later, I was running the Savannah Marathon.
Nice.
I put myself through it. Yeah.
Right. And but you know what? It sounds to me, you find conquering challenges fun.
Right.
Right. You're like, all right, great, cool. Let's go get that thing.
Let's do it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger once said, he says, I love when people tell me that it can't be done because I know I'm going to be the first. Right.
Right.
If you think about that, and Robin Williams once said, when they asked him if he would ever do a Mork and Mindy reunion, he says, you don't look backwards if you're trying to go forwards, or just run into a tree. Right? So if you're focusing on the past and what you did in the past and the experience you've had in the past, then you're not actually conquering the challenges that are coming ahead of you. And those challenges can be thought of as a cool thing to do. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to get to the other side of that. That'd be great.
Exactly. And then it's like the fireworks at the end for me. Every time I prove that I can do it and will do it. And just like this podcast, it just is a whirlwind thought in my head when I was doing a paper for my doctorate a couple months ago. So you know what? I'm going to start a podcast that's totally against the subject I'm studying. So that way I can have two different things going on in my head all the time. And my wife's like, yeah, you're going to burn out. I said, I got it. I'm going to do it. Challenge accepted. I just pushed forward and made a podcast. So
there you go. There you go. It's great. And, it's cool because, when you decide you want to do something, it's like, the business model for Apple is very interesting because Apple did not have a business plan until they were 10 years in. All they did was take bold steps. And then at 10 years in, they said, I guess we should organize this. Right. And then, look what they've done now. I'm sitting here talking to you right now. I've got a Mac computer right next to me. I've got a Mac computer in the other room. I've got an iPhone right in front of me and an iPad next to my bed in my bedroom. Right. So,
they did something right.
What'd you say?
They did something right.
They did something right. Yeah. And it's so fascinating to me that they didn't have a business plan until they were 10 years in. That's amazing.
Right.
To think about it.
just a couple young guys developing stuff and
in a garage. In a garage.
Right. This looks pretty cool.
Right. And their whole goal was to take on IBM. And,
right.
And how often? I mean, you only hear IBM now when you're talking to real big business now, because they're like, "Oh yeah, we're using IBM because we're buying it in commercial bulk." Right. And do you remember the film 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yes.
Okay. You remember the name of the computer was HAL? And do you ever know why it was named HAL?
No.
Because the letter after H is I, the letter after A is B, and the letter after L is M. And so IBM was the big conglomerate that everyone was talking about, and HAL became named because IBM is the next letter after each one of those letters. And so it literally was the monopoly in the room.
Yeah, everywhere you went when I guess through high school and after that, if you went to a business, their copier machine was IBM. Everything was IBM in the building. So that's all I ever heard of until technology finally caught up with small companies at the time, Apple or the Macintosh coming up. And oh my God, there's other people now. There's other competitors in the world, and now those two have taken over the world.
And what was really interesting is Jobs was so forward thinking that his first idea for a computer was the tablet, was the iPad. But he couldn't figure out how to get it to all the functionality to work in an iPad mode. So he started with the Macintosh. But his goal was to work to the iPad.
And I loved my iPad until it just recently died. I have to get a new one now. But I carried that everywhere with me.
Well, I'll tell you what, the new M1 chip and the new iPads are going to be amazing. I can't wait to get my next one for that, because they're working so much easier and faster and without heating up like a lot of computers do.
Yes. So you worked as a stunt coordinator, fight director. Any famous movies did you work on, or any films that we would know?
Most of the stunt work that I did was live stunt shows. So I did a lot of performance live. I did work on some technical things. Like I'm very well known for teaching whips and nunchucks and swordplay. I was in a movie called California with Brad Pitt and David Duchovny.
Yes.
And a couple of other films, but film work was not really my forte. I really was the live guy. And here's the main difference between live stunts and film stunts. In films, you learn your choreography, you learn your stunt, and you go out there and you perform it, you get it on film, and you're done. With live stunts, you have to learn it, train to do it repeatedly, and then you'll sometimes perform it for 4 or 5 times a day for 9 months. So you're doing hundreds of times more actual stunt time than you are when you're actually doing a film. So when you look at when you go to the theme parks and you see the Western stunt show, and the guy falls off the second story and he falls through a couple of boards and into the boardwalk, and it looks really painful and dangerous. Well, it is painful and dangerous, but the guy has literally does that 4 times a day, multiple days a week for an entire season. And that guy has got to be so spot on trained. And the difference really becomes is when you're doing live shows, you really get a sense of where you are and when you are in your stunt. So in other words, you start a fall, exactly how you're going to hit the second you start to make the motion. And sometimes when you're doing I was talking to another stuntman the other day, and he was talking about doing a film where he had to do a 6-story high fall, and he went off the building, and he'd never done a 6-story high fall. He'd only done 3-story high falls. And he went off the building. It was just because he wasn't used to that fall. He ended up in the wrong position and almost got seriously injured because he just wasn't used to the fall, because he ended up with his feet down instead of being flat. And that's it's interesting. When you do live stunts, you actually do much more stunt work, but you do the same one repeatedly. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that makes plenty of sense right there. It definitely makes sense because you actually, and also in the first time you're doing it live, you have to get it right, or it's not a very good show.
or it might be a really good show, but you'll never do it again.
Exactly.
As Daffy Duck once said, I can only do it once.
That's right. There's some things that are going to stop you at that point.
Right. It's great, but I can only do it once, right? So it's like, and it's like when you're in any of those stunts, they are the as far as film work's concerned, what's really interesting to me is I'm one of those guys. I have worked on a bunch of different film things, but I don't like to talk about the film things because I think when you learn too much about behind the scenes of a film, you end up seeing the wizard behind the curtain and taking the magic away from the art form. The art form is the story that's been told, and a stuntman's job or a stunt person's job. There's a lot of amazing stunt women I know too, who their job is to go out there and propel the story forward. And if you're opening up the doors and showing all the stuff behind, you're kind of losing the momentum of the story itself. And to me, I have it was funny because I recently did another podcast. It was me and another guy, another actor who's basically a specialty skills actor, which is basically an actor who will do some of his own stunts. And it was very interesting because as we were sitting there talking, it was like we realized, we're just part of the story. And if you're not part of the end product, then and you have to realize that the end product is what's most important in all of it. So most of us who do stunts, we don't necessarily like to talk about the things we've done, and sometimes contractually we're not allowed to, because a lot of actors will go on stage and talk shows and say they do their own stunts, and when in reality they don't. And so you're not allowed to say certain things.
Right. You don't want to mess up their bold-faced lies on Ellen DeGeneres or whatever show they're on.
Well, they're building a reputation, and God bless them. Yeah. Go for it. Who cares? I got paid.
You did your job. You did it right, and you can walk away.
Right. I still, exactly. I still have all my function.
Yeah. So, on all your trips overseas, I know you said the one soldier told you made him feel like he wasn't even there anymore in that same realm. What was your favorite base or location that you got to go in entertain troops?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we did so many bases. I can't tell you. I will tell you, I'll tell you an interesting story is the first two tours. Well, let me kind of back up a little bit. So September 8th, 2001, September 8th. Okay. Saturday, September 8th. I'm walking off stage at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, and these two guys walk up and say, "Hey, we're from the USO. Would you be interested in doing USO shows?" We're like, "Sure, that'd be great." So September 10th, which was Monday, we showed up at their office and dropped off our marketing packet. Of course, Tuesday was September 11th, and all the towers and the Pentagon got hit and everything. And then they called us up and they said, "Can you go right away?" And you know how the military is. Right away means let's get the paperwork done, right? So we went and got all the paperwork done and all our shots done and everything. And they sent us to Europe. We went from November to February that year, and we were over there as all the soldiers were coming into England, and they were sleeping in the hallways at bases because they didn't have enough bed space. They were moving them towards Afghanistan, and so we did that tour was actually very, very impactful because we were actually there and seeing soldiers who were on their way. The second tour, they sent us to Europe again, only this time, nobody was going through Europe to get to where they're going. And so we were showing up on bases, and it was like nobody was even showing up for the shows because if they want entertainment, they're going into Europe. They're not going to hang on base, right? So,
all right.
So I kept telling them on that tour, I said, you need to send us where they need us. They don't need us in Europe. You need to send us as far down range as you can send us. I kept telling them that. So the third tour, I found myself standing on the flight line in Fallujah.
Oh, nice.
and I'm standing there and I'm telling this colonel, I told him, don't send us back to Europe. Send us where they need us and send us further down range. And I finished the word range, and a quarter mile off to my left, a bomb blew up. And the colonel turns, he looks at me, he says, "Son, you can't get further down range." Well, then we went on and did a whole bunch. And I don't know if you remember early on in the war, I forget, it was did the Shia attack the Sunnis mosque or vice versa? I don't know which one did it, but it was in a town called Samara. Yep. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so right next to that town, there's a base. And we were in the way our show worked. We had 4 of us with us, me and my comedy partner, and we brought 2 other comedians with us so that we could bring out a full-blown show, like a real long show. And they would put us in one helicopter and all of our equipment in another helicopter. We'd fly in these 2 Blackhawks. Well, we flew in, they dropped us off, and we get out. The helicopters, of course, get off the ground as fast as possible. So you don't leave the targets down, get the planes in the air. And so we get out, we're like, okay, it's lunchtime. They said, well, we don't have a DFAC, a dining facility for you heathens who don't know that. We don't have a DFAC here on base. So go over to that trailer over there, get your food, and then scatter and find some place to eat because we don't want to congregate. So we went over and got our food. We found this Humvee and climbed up in the Humvee. We ate our lunch and did all that. And then we got finished lunch. We went over and we got all set up. We did our full show, 2.5 hours of just, swords and whips and nunchucks and beds of nails and ladder walking and juggling and fire eating and blah, blah, blah. It was crazy show. Finished the show, got all packed down, walked back out near where the choppers come in. The 2 choppers come in and they land, and the soldiers throw all of our equipment in the front chopper. We climb up in the back chopper. The choppers tip to fly out, and the RPG goes underneath the helicopter I'm sitting in and hits the Humvee I had lunch in.
Oh, wow.
And then now we're the only birds in the air, right? And so we're going hunting because we're looking for them. We started sweeping the town of Samara. And then, the guy with the gun waiting to shoot something, and we never actually found them. But it was a really interesting experience to have that happen to me. I'm sure you understand, considering your own.
Oh yes, understand the pucker factor very much.
Pucker factor. That's a great way to say it because that's exactly how it felt.
Yes,
you couldn't get a pin up there with a jackhammer, man.
That's that point where you don't trust a fart right there.
Right. Exactly. But you know what? I got to say, having done those tours, I would go again right now. I would go anywhere in the world because no matter what you think about the actual conflicts they're in, no matter what you think of the war, no matter what you think of it, those people volunteered to go anywhere in the world to defend me. And so it is the least I can do to go there and make them laugh for a couple hours. And I think that people need to stop getting into the politics of why we're there and start thinking on the human level of who is there. Who is there and why are they there? And I think that's missed in a lot of today's conversation.
Oh yeah, it's a missed in multiple conversations, not just with the war, with many things. They blame the people on the ground. They don't blame the person that put them there. So
right, exactly.
It's just a weird dynamic in that sense.
Right.
My tour in Kandahar, that's when Robin Williams, I met him and Lance Armstrong. I forget the one comedian's last name is Black. They came to visit us. Yes. And I got Robin Williams to say "Good Morning Afghanistan." That was my highlight of ever with any of the USO treatment things. So I got him to say that and got my picture with him. And so that was the closest I got to when I got to escort him to the stage, and then I was back on duty. So,
do you remember what year? You remember what year that was?
That was 2010.
2010. Okay.
Or 11 actually. Early 11 probably.
Okay. So in 2005, we were the tour that followed Robin Williams. He came in 1 week, we came in the next.
Okay.
Yeah. So we never got to meet him, but we were always right behind him, hearing all the Robin Williams stories. The funny thing is, if you go on YouTube right now, you'll find this one where he's at a base in Kuwait and he's starting his act, and then Reveille's hits and the whole audience stands up and turns around, and he's like, "What the hell?" Right? And it was funny because I was watching that and I had that exact same experience on that exact same stage. It was, it was like watching my life being played by Robin Williams.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Amazing guy. He was an amazing guy in general, and then of course, he had a sad ending, but that was a mental disease. Right. And his wife talks about, he had been diagnosed with a form of dementia that just, totally debilitates your mind. So, But he had a great life, and I love his every one of his movies. He made sure that somewhere in the movie he said "Carpe diem" either in English or in Latin, right? He said "Seize the day" or "Carpe diem."
Seize the day. Yeah.
And that's the way I live my life now. Is I seize every day, and I go out and I achieve my dream because of the fact that I'm achieving every day, because I'm seizing every day.
Definitely. My wife actually she's a history teacher, 8th grade, and she has that on her wall, Carpe Diem. So she took that from him.
It's an amazing quote. And, there's so many amazing quotes that are out there, but that kind of says a lot in the idea of, you're the one who has to seize the day. You're the one who has to get that interaction hero and get them charging forward. Nobody else can do it for you, because if you're following what somebody else says about your life, then you're living their life and not your own. You need to make sure you're living their opinion. Say it again.
You start to live other people's opinions, and you're not really living. You're just there.
Right. And if you really want to have an amazing, unconditionally loving life, then to actually truly have an unconditional loving life, you have to fully be you so that you can be loved for you. And if you're living to somebody else's expectations, you're not being you. You need to make sure that you are expressing you. I talk to people all the time who are they're single and they want to find a quote unquote soulmate. And I say, well, how you doing that? And they say, well, I'm going to the bars and I'm meeting people. And I'm like, so let me ask you a question. Are you a bar person? And I can't tell you how many people say no. So you're not a bar person. So in other words, you're going to a place to meet people who like the things that you don't necessarily like, and pretending you're like them. So why don't you just start doing the things you like to do and start to talk to people who like the same things as you? And, just stop worrying about finding somebody and start worrying about expressing yourself. That way somebody can find you and like you for you.
Great advice. And I've seen people go down that road and choose someone that is not even compatible because they went to a place, like you said, to a bar or say a casino to meet somebody, and that's not their life, but that was that person's life, and it falls apart not long after.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, I I learned that the hard way, because they call me Triple X because I have 3 of them. But what I learned from all 3 of them was that every time I got into one of those relationships, I gave myself up for their expectations. And, they didn't love me for me. They loved me for what they thought they could make me. And that, that's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. And you need to make sure that you're being yourself fully. And if they don't like you for you, then move on. Move along.
Exactly. We're not a circus animal that needs to be trained.
Right.
We are when you meet us, and that's what it is.
And if you can't handle that, then we're not meant to be together.
Right.
And I said something to somebody the other day. They were talking about their life, and they were talking about the fact that they spent some time alone, and it seemed like it's such a long day. I said, well, the only way that you can be comfortable with you is if you're welcome, if you give yourself enough time to be comfortable being alone. Because if you're not comfortable being alone, that means you need something. And that's codependence. You have to be very comfortable being alone.
That's also good advice. Yes.
Well, I'm very happily single right now, and I'm really very excited. I'm enjoying the process. I get to decorate my house the way I want to decorate my house.
I can leave the coaster anywhere. It's good.
Right. And some days when I don't think I'm going to have a guest, I can walk around in my underwear, no problem.
Exactly. Empty nester. It's good.
Amen. Well, I have a 17-year-old son. I'm teaching him how to walk around in his underwear too, so it's good.
The proper form and stuff. You got to have.
Yeah, man. That's the best. That's the best part about COVID-19. All these virtual Zoom meetings and everything. No one knows if you're wearing pants.
Yeah, there was plenty of times I was just in my boxers and a polo shirt.
Absolutely. It's funny. In my virtual studio where I am right now, I have over here beside me to my left, there's a rack of different suits, right? And I'm doing air quotes around the word suits because what they are is they're a shirt with a tie already tied, right? And a jacket. And I walk over and I slip into it and I come on camera and I do my thing and I get off and I take it off and I hang it right back up where it was. And I got 3 or 4 of them, so it looks like I can have different suits every day. It's the best.
Yes. It's freedom.
Freedom, exactly. In lots of ways.
Yes.
They're free.
Well, John, it's been great talking to you. I'm glad that you linked us together, and we got this thing squared away and got you on here. If you could tell the audience how to get in contact with you, the best ways to do that, and then we'll end this like that.
The easiest way to get a hold of me is corporateactionhero.com. You're going to find my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Facebook on there. Also, I want to make sure I give your audience something to go away with. And I'm going to give your audience a free gift. And that free gift is my 5F workbook. Now, I want to go back a little bit. I use the word free. Free is an important word because free means I'm not taking anything from you. This is a link that you're going to go and you're going to be able to just download it. I'm not even going to ask for your email address. So it's corporateactionhero.com/gift. But what this book is, it takes you through my 5F process, helps you achieve your goals, get out of your self-limiting beliefs, and moving forward towards achieving what you want in your life. So take the opportunity to go try that out. Also, since that link's going to take you to my website anyway, check out my vlog, which is a daily motivational video. I put out a new video every day. It's just a short couple minutes of motivation. So it's kind of something, the way to start your day and moving on. So go check that out. If you don't want to do it on my website, you can also find it on YouTube under corporateactionhero.com or under Corporate Action Hero, not the .com part.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, John, again for being on. And I'll probably link up with you again in the future for more good chat. This is a good chat. That's what this was. And I'd like to do it again sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anytime, man. Anytime.
If you want to look up something, look up the Clarksville Jeep Crew. That's who we have down here. You can see all the stuff that we do here.
Oh, great. Clarksville, where Clarksville, where?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Tennessee. So how far is that from Nashville?
About 45 minutes.
Okay. Are you towards Murfreesboro?
The opposite direction. We're west towards north and west towards the Kentucky border.
Okay. I used to direct the Tennessee Renaissance Festival many years ago.
Oh, okay. Yes, that Murfreesboro is I say 55 minutes from here.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, you guys have a great day, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, John. You too.
See you.
That was great chatting with the corporate action hero, John Davis, about his life and his journey to get where he is today. Thanks for being on, and I can't wait to have you back on. You know how we do this. Thanks for taking some of your time to spend with us on the Misfit Nation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the link as much as possible. We appreciate you. As always, till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are the Misfit Nation.